Marriage, like all promises, is not made to be broken. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to Sabbath School Study Group. This is it. 5-part series about to wrap up here in the book of Mark, Jesus teaching his disciples, part 2. And we finish by talking about marriage. Love and marriage. The two do go together. And it is amazing what marriage is, but it is equally unfortunate in what it has become. We have allowed what God has established to be molded and manipulated by man, rather than we entering into what marriage should be. We have made marriage to fit into what we are or who we want to be. And that's no different than how people treat the seventh-day Sabbath. The idea that the seventh-day Sabbath is old and done away with, and we've reshaped that day to the day of our doing things or our day of going to the game. And then we followed up with God's day. He has the exact opposite. His intent was that we would put him first, seek him first, and then all these other things that we do, they be added unto us. So whether it's marriage or the Sabbath, and the reason why these two are significant, marriage and the Sabbath, because these are the two institutions that were given to us at creation. So that means they transcend culture, they transcend geography, they even transcend faith. They are inherent and they are critical to what it means not just to be a human being, but what it means to be a created being. So the only way to truly find fulfillment as created beings with our Creator is to enjoy the experience of Sabbath worship and marriage as he designed it. But before we go here to wrap it up, I want to thank you again for watching. Appreciate you subscribing to the channel. Make sure you hit the like button. Pass this on to someone else who can be encouraged in their faith. And also visit us online, changeministry.org. Jesus is answering a question that is posed to him in regards to marriage in Mark chapter 10. And it's asked by the people who had the hardest time understanding the simplicity of his truth. The Pharisees came to him and asked him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife, tempting him or testing him? And Jesus answers and says unto them, what did Moses command you? And they said, Moses suffered to write a bill of divorcement and to put her away. So they're asking Jesus a question to trap him. But in the course of trying to trap him, he actually traces them. He points them back to where they are and to what is most important to them. So he says, well, what did Moses say? Since you put him on this level above God, what did he say? So Jesus doesn't go against it, but he builds on it. He builds on it by saying, verse 5 through 7, Jesus answered and said to them, this is so, if you will, for the hardness of your heart, he wrote you this precept. But from the beginning of the creation, God, there it is. We're back to where marriage came from. Marriage did not come from Moses. It comes from our Maker. The original design is that God made them male and female. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. So Jesus is tracking them back so they can put their root, they can put that GPS, the GPS logo where it says where you are. He says, you're starting from the wrong place. Where you are is okay because it is true, but I want to get you back to the source of truth. Let's go back to the beginning, all the way back to basics. And he's getting them to see that marriage is between one man and one woman. And the intent is that that man will go from his home to establish a new home, to build a new home with his wife. I mean, so far, so good. He's probably not really ruffling any feathers at this point, but here's where it gets real. Because in that leaving home and entering into another with the spouse, both he and she now, they're no longer two people in one home. They are one in that home. It says, and they twain shall be one flesh. So then they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God hath joined together, nobody, let no man put asunder. So if we keep the source of marriage in the eyes of another human being, or even in the eyes of a state, or even in the eyes of a court, that state, or that other human being has the ultimate prerogative as to the context of that marriage, whether or not it exists, whether or not it works, or even what would even constitute a marriage. That's where we are today. But because our GPS origin is off base, and we've put it in a courthouse rather than in a garden called Eden, and we've taken it from a judge and rather to the Most High Judge, now Jesus is helping us to see, whether it's in Mark 10 or whether it's in 2024, this is what God made. And whatever God has made, we can't alter any more than whatever or whomever God has put together. No man can separate it. Yes, there is a biblical precedent for divorce. And Jesus says that really the only way out of this covenant is through adultery, unfaithfulness in the marriage, or death itself, physical death. Because the degree to which this oneness is made, God says, I am stronger than your failure. He's saying that even if this marriage faces adultery, that the adultery still cannot change the fact that these two people in the eyes of God are one. Now that adultery can change that in the eyes of one of the parties. It can change it in the eyes of the husband. It can change it in the eyes of the wife. And God is willing to respect that. But what he's saying here is that my covenant, my promise is even bigger than that adultery. And the only reason he can argue or say this is because his atonement is bigger and it's stronger than any mistake that we can make in a marriage. So even if we choose to go that biblical route and decide to be divorced, God will be with us. God will walk with both parties through that scenario. The husband, the wife, the guilty party, and the one who is the victim of the adultery. But if we both make the decision that we're going to look at us like God looks at us and see beyond our mistake and beyond the controversy and beyond our failures, or even beyond the seat that's left up, or beyond the lack of money, in sickness or health, richer or poorer. That's why we say that, because none of those things are bigger than the oneness that God makes on the day we say, I do. I hope that this gives us encouragement. If we're in a tough marriage, please remember, God is in the middle of that marriage too. And if we find ourselves walking through a divorce, whether it's just happened, we're in the middle of it right now. It could be something that we had to do years ago. We could be in the end of multiple divorces. Whatever the case might be, through every circumstance, spouses may come and go, but God never fails. He wants to walk with us and minister to us. And it helps us to see that even when we may fail in our relationships to one another, God never, ever fails in his relationship to you. So walk with him as he's walking with you.